There are days when you wake up and you simply do not want to be happy. You don't want to put on the mask that the world expects from you. You don't want to be positive, or productive, or strong. There is a heaviness inside you, quiet, soft, but undeniable, pulling you inward. On those days you do not wish for cheerfulness or motivation. You crave stillness. You crave quiet. You crave the strange comfort of your own sadness. And that desire confuses you, because in a world obsessed with happiness, where every book, every post, every message tells you to be positive, stay grateful, choose joy, how do you explain the longing to simply sit in sorrow? How do you explain the pull of melancholy? Melancholy is not sadness in the way people imagine it. It is not the sharp sting of heartbreak or the raw wound of grief. It is something softer, slower, deeper, almost poetic. It is the desire to sit in a sadness that feels safe, a sadness that feels honest, a sadness that invites you to take off the armor you have been wearing for years. People fear melancholy because they misunderstand it. They think it is a sign of weakness, but in truth, melancholy is often a hidden kind of strength. It is your mind and your body whispering that you are finally safe enough to release what you have been holding inside for too long. So much of what shapes us is not what happened in our childhood, but what didn't happen. The love we needed but didn't receive. The comfort we longed for but never got. The apologies we deserved but never heard. The moments we needed to be held but were told to be strong. As children, we cannot understand why these things are missing. We just learn to adapt. We learn to bury our longings deep within us. We learn to tell ourselves lies like "I'm fine," or "I don't need anyone," because it helps us survive. But buried emotions are not erased, they wait. And eventually, they resurfaced not as anger or chaos, but as a soft, inexplicable sadness. A sadness that shows up in calm moments. A sadness that whispers from within. That is melancholy, the quiet return of everything you never had a chance to feel. This is why melancholy often appears when life looks stable, when nothing is going wrong on the outside, but everything on the inside is stirring. When the noise fades, and you finally have silence, your heart begins to speak. Melancholy is the emotion that rises when your soul feels safe enough to remember. It is the doorway through which old wounds finally ask for your attention. It is the soft ache of a childhood you survived, but never fully processed. Psychologists call this the emotional backlog. As children, we simply do not have the capacity to hold the full weight of our pain. So we hide it, we numb it, we push it down. But that backlog waits patiently, silently until adulthood. And melancholy becomes its language. It is not the desire to break down, it is the desire to finally open up. It is the longing to feel the emotions you were once too small to carry. Yet the world rarely gives us permission to feel this way. Most of us grew up hearing messages like, "Don't cry, be strong, cheer up. Other people have it worse." These phrases were meant to comfort us, but instead, they taught us to silence ourselves. They taught us that sadness is unacceptable. They taught us that vulnerability is weakness. They taught us to perform strength at the cost of our own emotional truth. And so we grow up wearing masks, smiling when we want to cry, pretending we are fine when we are exhausted, forcing optimism because we fear being a burden. But sadness is not the enemy of life. Sadness is evidence of depth. It is the heart acknowledging the weight of existence. It is the soul recognizing the fragility of time. Melancholy makes us see the world differently. It slows us down. It sharpens our awareness. It softens our gaze. When you are in melancholy, even the simplest things, rain on a window, an empty street, the echo of a memory, feel meaningful. Almasak. This sadness does not break you. It deepens you. And if you've been strong for too long, if you've spent years forcing yourself to appear okay, your nervous system eventually becomes tired. Humans are not built to carry unspoken pain forever. When strength becomes a performance instead of a choice, the body rebels. The nervous system collapses on itself. The mind whispers, "We can't keep pretending." And melancholy is gentle, patient, compassionate, like a long overdue exhale. It says, "You don't have to be strong in this moment. You don't have to smile. You don't have to hide. Just feel." And in that softness, you finally breathe. Crying in melancholy is not like crying in despair. Despair consumes you. Melancholy frees you. Despair feels like drowning. Melancholy feels like cleansing. Despite isolate. Melancholy connects. When you cry in melancholy, it feels as though old dust is being washed away, as if years of silence are releasing themselves, drop by drop. It is healing disguised as sadness. Yet society rarely celebrates this kind of emotional release. Productivity matters more than presence. Performance matters more than honesty. We are expected to be functional, energetic, motivated even when our hearts are carrying years of unresolved weight. But humans are not machines. We cannot heal through avoidance. We cannot grow through suppression, and we cannot move forward until we acknowledge what is hurting inside us. Think of the child who grew up too fast, the child who became the responsible one, the strong one, the one who didn't cry, the one who took care of others while no one took care of them. That child learned that strength is silence, and vulnerability is dangerous. That child learned to shrink their needs to fit the emotional space available. And as an adult, that same person might feel overwhelmed by sadness at unexpected moments. But that sadness is the child within them finally saying, I needed you. I needed comfort. I needed someone to notice. Melancholy is that inner voice finally rising after years of being ignored. This is why melancholy feels nostalgic. It carries echoes of moments where you needed love, but received absence instead. It is the shadow of unspoken longing. Neuroscience shows that emotional neglect leaves a direct imprint in the nervous system. The brain remembers what the mind forgets. And melancholy is the place where that memory resurfaces. But this resurfacing is not punishment, it is opportunity. Opportunity to reconnect, to release, to reconcile with your own story. Mourning is not optional. Mourning is essential. Without mourning, we recreate the same patterns over and over. We search for love that feels like childhood. We chase validation that always slips away. We hide our softest parts behind walls, even we can't see. Melancholy is the doorway out of this cycle. It is the invitation to revisit your past with compassion instead of fear. Art has always understood this. The most beautiful music is often melancholic. The stories that stay with us are the ones that make us cry. We return to sad songs not because we crave suffering, but because sadness feels honest. It reflects our truth. It allows us to feel deeply in a world that constantly urges us to stay on the surface. When we encounter art that touches our sorrow, we also encounter ourselves. Spiritual traditions recognize melancholy as well. Many describe it as a form of wisdom, a deepening of the heart, because once you have sat in your own sadness, once you have faced your own silence, something within you softens. You begin to see the sadness in others. You become more compassionate, more patient, more understanding. You listen differently. You sit with people differently. Melancholy builds empathy. It bridges hearts. And yet it is crucial to distinguish melancholy from despair. Despair tells you nothing will change. Melancholy tells you something is ready to. Despair is a dead end. Melancholy is a turning point. It is the emotion that comes before growth. It is the emotion that signals transformation. It is the emotional rhythm that softens you enough to rebuild. When you allow melancholy to move through you, you discover its gifts. You realize that your tears are not signs of weakness, they are signs of release. You realize that sadness does not make you broken, it makes you honest. You realize that vulnerability is not a flaw, it is a doorway to connection. And slowly, the heaviness begins to lift. Slowly, something inside you becomes lighter. Slowly, you begin to feel again not the forced joy of performance, but the gentle joy of authenticity. Perhaps the quiet miracle of melancholy is that it gives you permission to be human, to stop pretending, to stop performing, to finally rest, to finally breathe, to finally acknowledge that you cannot carry everything alone. In the softness of sadness, you rediscover parts of yourself that you abandoned for survival. You reclaim parts that were silenced. You embrace parts that were neglected. And in that embrace, you begin to heal. So, the next time melancholy visits you, don't they run from Italiano. Don't bury it under distractions or numb it with noise. Sit with it. Breathe with it. Let it speak. Let it show you what has been waiting inside you. It may bring memories, emotions, or longings that feel unfamiliar, but they are not here to harm you. They are here to free you. Because melancholy is not the absence of joy. It is the doorway through which real joy returns. It is the emotion that prepares the heart for renewal. It is the softening that precedes growth. It is the release that makes space for life. And perhaps, the deepest truth of all is this: the desire to be sad does not make you broken. It makes you human, and the more you allow yourself to feel, the more whole you become.